the question I've been wanting to get to for this whole podcast. You say China might want to bomb the moon?
Yes.
Why? Why?
If you're able to use the first illustration I sent you, the Chinese within the last 3 years have begun to gradually reveal their sort of early moon architecture, how they're going to get to the moon, and for about almost 3 years, they've been revealing slowly the principles and what their moon lander is going to look like. The moon lander is very much influenced by the Soviet concept of the late 1960s called the Luni Koryabl, or their moon lander. Essentially, the Soviet concept was to have a two-stage moon lander. There's the manned stage that only carried one guy, but that was attached to a booster. And the booster performed most of the descent burn. It would slow the moon lander from about 5,000 miles an hour down to 250 miles an hour. And then, having done so, the booster would detach and then crash into the moon about 2 to 4 kilometers away from where the manned moon lander lands on the moon. So every time the Soviets would have gone to the moon, the booster for their moon lander would have crashed into the moon. If an American Apollo landing site was nearby, we were in danger of being hit by this unguided booster that was going to crash into the moon. Now, this is what the Chinese are going to be doing. Their manned moon lander that'll carry 2 astronauts also uses a booster to decelerate, to begin its descent to the moon, and to slow down the manned moon lander to this basic 200 to 250 mile an hour speed, down from 5,000 miles an hour. And then the booster is going to detach. Just within the last week, Chinese internet posters whose postings managed to get to the key Chinese space-following Twitter accounts have revealed that there's another article out by the Journal of Deep Space Exploration that essentially confirms that the Chinese will be using this method to put their people on the moon. That there will be a booster that slows down the moon lander and then detaches from it and crashes into the moon. Now, the moon's big. If something crashes 2 or even 4 kilometers away, is that really a big deal? Something to be alarmed about? Fisher, are you exaggerating here? Maybe not, because China and the United States and now India have all targeted the south pole of the moon for early exploration. That's where we believe most of the lunar ice exists. And the Chinese have also picked up, they've located about 50 locations on the moon that are kind of on their list of places to go. And they've put them all on a map. And yeah, the South Pole area is well populated. And we've known this from previous disclosures by Chinese space officials. They have 10 or 13 locations on the South Pole that they're targeting in their early moon exploration phase. And a couple of these locations are also of interest by the United States, and we've identified them as well. So the chance of an American moon landing base being very close to the Chinese base is real. And if that happens, well, the Chinese method of going to the moon could turn into a threat to the American moon base. And we should be talking about this. NASA should be highlighting this. NASA should be asking public questions. Is this how China is going to the moon? Or are they going to be bombing us every time they send a manned moon lander, or a large moon rover, or a piece of a manned moon base to the moon? Because all of this is coming out in Chinese PowerPoint briefings and journal articles and even press articles that are beginning to explain the early Chinese moon architecture. But these revelations have been going on for a number of years. But Western space officials, and particularly American space officials, who should understand this, are really saying nothing about this danger, and that really irks me.
Well, I was actually this is what I've been wondering the whole time that you've been talking about this is what
Well,
is the
hold on,
response?
Shelley. Real quick, yeah, because I'm sorry, I had to interrupt your question to talk about bombing the moon. But yeah, you asked a good question about how do we stop this.
Well, I mean, yeah, like what is but like before how do we stop this? Like what has the response even been? Like NASA has I had no idea that they were talking about bombing the moon. Is it that there's skepticism towards that these are the actual plans or is it like a kind
Or
of
it's because they're technically not bombs. They're just like pieces of equipment that are going to fall and act kind of like a bomb.
or even without the bombing thing, just like what their plans are for domination of space or whatever. Is it that we just don't think that we're not taking it seriously? What is the response of the United States?
Well, I think the over the last, I'd say, 20 to 25 years, you have had real tension between, let's say, the warriors and the diplomats. Especially under the Obama administration, there was a kind of high illusion that we could get on in space like with the Chinese, like we were getting on with the Russians. And the Russians basically had a temporary plan. Okay, we can't afford a space station, so if we get the Americans to pay for most of it, we'll glom onto their space station. And if they pay for space taxi rides, all the better. But now that this is no longer useful to them because they want to retake and control Europe again, the space cooperation with Russia is over. It's all but ended formally. So you had under Obama a cabal of officials who thought, okay, if we can establish peace with China in space, then maybe we have a better chance of achieving space or peace on Earth. Well, that never worked with the Soviet Union. It didn't work with Russia. It certainly isn't going to work with China. If China doesn't want to get along with us in peace on Earth, it certainly is not going to get along in peace in space. So, but the illusion persisted. Now, the warriors understood all of this, and but they also understood that if we, the Americans, militarize space, if we put weapons in space, then the other guys are going to do that too. So we have to be very careful. What we've put up in terms of weapons, if we have, is all very classified, and we don't talk about it. When the Chinese reach a certain point, we'll really have no choice but to talk about it and to start either acknowledging that we have weapons or space or actually to begin to put them up there. The era of peace in space will officially be over until the Chinese Communist Party or its successor decides, no, we really need peace in space in order to fully benefit from the moon, Mars, and beyond. We're not there yet. The Chinese Communist Party wants dominance. It understands space dominance is required for Earth dominance. So that's its trajectory. Now, when will we begin defending ourselves from the Chinese threat? When they go to the moon and bomb the moon, that's going to be a wake up. But we don't have to wait that long. The Chinese are basically telling us that they're going to be bombing the moon like their Long March 5 boosters bomb the Earth. They send these big boosters into low Earth orbit. They just circle around until they hit the Earth somewhere. Nobody knows where. The Chinese don't invest in the means to control those boosters after they've accomplished their mission. They don't bring them down in a safe area. They just let them go until they hit something. That's essentially what they're doing on the moon as well. They're just letting these boosters go until they hit something. And if you happen to be in the way, well, they'll come up with all kinds of justifications to make it our fault. With this Chinese attitude, the United States is justified saying, okay, well, perhaps we need dual use capabilities to defend ourselves. The laser that will be mining minerals on the moon's surface, if it's pointed to the stars, might actually defend us from this bombing Chinese moonlander booster. So I think we're perfectly capable of doing what's necessary to defend ourselves without fully violating the sort of Artemis Accord principles that we've set out. But to do so will kind of just let all the cats out of the bag. The Chinese will look at this and accuse us of militarization immediately. Of course, they're going to do the same thing. And the coalition that we've managed to join together will all stand up and say, hey, look, the Chinese and the Americans are prepared to shoot at each other. Do we really want to be in the middle of all this? Maybe we need our own coalition centered around another space power, maybe Europe. But in reality, all of the space powers will be threatened. And they will have to then make choices. Do we defend our people millions of miles away from Earth, or do we somehow proceed with the illusion that the Chinese aren't going to bomb us first?